Begin the current Daf, Mesech Bava Metzia Daf Lamed Hey. Begin 15 lines down at the top of the Amud. We were finishing up a conversation with the previous Daf regarding this teaching of Rav Huna. Rav Huna had said on the previous Amud that although there's this halacha of our Mishnah of that Mishalman, and if a guy wants to pay and he doesn't want to swear to get himself off the hook as a shomer, so then the keva goes to him. Rav Huna says, okay, he could pay, but he has to make a shvur she'ein b'rshusah that's not in possession because we're concerned maybe he wants that item, so he's willing to pay for it. So to take care of that concern, we have him swear about that. And the Gemara continues to ask on that teaching of Rav Huna. Throughout the entire world. So we're discussing today's Daf. The Gemara brings a story. Ahu Gavra, a certain person, the Afkid Kipe Gabi Chabri. He deposited earrings by his friend. So Rav Nachman, when this guy says that I don't know where they are, says, okay, that's negligence. The guy says, no, I don't want to pay. So he agvil apadnim, and he collected his mansion from him. Then they found the earrings. So how do you keep lemara? He says, okay, give the earrings back, and then mahadra apadnim lemara, and let this guy get the mansion back. The problem is that the earrings had gone up in price. And the Gemara tries to figure out, well, how could you just give it back? Well, this guy had already gotten it in exchange, and therefore, what do you do with the increase in the value of the earrings? And the Gemara discusses the element of atrachila beidina regarding that he made him go through the effort of going to court, and how that relates to the halacha of shuma hadar regarding when we evaluate an item as payment, do we say that that goes back, up until when we say that goes back? And the Gemara in Amud Beis discusses haseicha par mechaveroi. So someone rents a cow from his friend, and then Meshila Acher, then he lends it to someone else. There's no more ways. We have machlokes in the Mishnah. What do you do? Because the seicher, since it died, is pater. The guy he lent it to is chayiv because he's a shayel. So who does the shayel pay to? To the seicher or to the original owner? Does the seicher walk away with a gain on a profit on what he had rented because of what he lent to someone else? And then the Gemara has a complex case of pam shabayim sham mekama parsel seicher. You could have sometimes that the owner will pay out many cows to the guy who rented from him because he actually borrowed it back from the renter. Many cows, like 4 cows, he's going to have to compensate the guy who rented it from him. So begin the current Daf. We're first finishing up the conversation with the previous Daf, 15 lines down at the top of the Amud on Lamed Hey and Aleph. Rav Huna bar Tachlifa Mishmei de Rava Amar, he says, the Reisha de Seifa, we had brought in our previous Daf, 4 teachings that we learned about regarding a malva and a leiva. This was the Mishnah, Mesechtes Shavuos that we brought. And the ratio was talking about where the malva was claiming from the leiva, because the malva lost the security, if you recall from the previous Daf. One case was where the leiva is going to be pater because he's claiming the security was exactly the value, so there was kaifer hakol. And the case that is mechayev was regarding when he was admitting partially. So it's not exactly like you claim, Mr. Malva. It wasn't a shekel. It was actually 3 dinarim. And then the Sefer was talking about where the Levi was claiming, because he said actually that the security was worth more. My bike was double the amount. So in the case where the Malva totally denies his pater, in the case where he admits to part of it, his mechayev shvur might be mektzes. So Rav Huna bar Tachlifa says, in the name of Rava, that Reisha the Sefer, meaning the Seifa, which we're talking about, where the Leiva is claiming from the Malva, saying, you lost my security? Do you realize my security was worth more than the loan itself? Now you owe me money. The Reisha was the case when the Malva is going to be pater, because he's totally denying the claim. He's saying, no, that's not true. The security was worth exactly the amount of the loan. We're even, Stephen, I don't know, you don't know me, but I don't know you. So he's pater from a shvur, like we said. So that says Rava, that's a tiyuf to Rav Huna. That halacha refutes Rav Huna. Why? Because what was the case? Let's revisit the case, says the Gemara. The Mishnah had said, if the borrower says, Hasel b'hil b'sanilab, you lent me on the security a sela, which is 4 dinar. Shtayim hayeshava. But says the borrower that my security was worth 2 slam, was double the amount, and you lost that, so you owe me money. The lender says, no, I lend you a seller on the security, and seller hayeshava. The security was only worth a seller. I don't know you, you don't know me. So Pater says the Mishnah is going to be exempt. Says the Gemara, Rav Huna, if you hold Rav Huna's teaching, wait a second. Malva. Since the lender has to swear anyway, why does he have to swear? He's a shomer on the security. anytime a guy is saying that, okay, I'm liable for the security, so you don't owe me money, because that's what the security was on, but you have to first switch in the Birshusai. Maybe he liked the guy's bike. Maybe he liked the security. Rav Huna says you have to swear that you don't have it. Once you're swearing, then you should have to swear based on the halachic principle of that we roll on you other oaths, which is if you have a claim on something that you cannot make a guy swear, with another claim that you can make the guy swear, there's halacha that you could roll on him the oath to swear on both of them, which Gilgal Shua is a biblical halacha, as the Gemara learns in Kedushin of Chav Zayin Beis. He should have to swear kama yeshava, how much it's worth. So why do you tell me that that's the case that he's pater from a shvuah on how much it's worth? What do you mean? If you have to swear anyway, so Gilgal Shua should be mechayiv you to swear on kama yeshava. So why are you saying that's the case that he's pater? So Ravashi says, Amit l'shmaiti kamed Rav Kahana. I said this teaching in front of Rav Kahana. Vamali said, you know how you explain it? That let it be that this, what the Mishnah is saying that he's pater, is bimaminoi, is where the borrower trusts the lender that it's not in his possession. So he's not swearing Rav Huna's oath. So therefore there's no Gilgal Shvuah. So therefore he's pater from the halacha of kama hayishav, how much is worth, because he's a kaifa kol on that. But you're right, if he had to swear, based on Rav Huna's teaching, you're right, he would have to swear how much it was worth. So says the Gemara, wait a second, if that's the case, then hemne level lamalva. So let the borrower then trust the lender, nami b'ha kama hayishav, how much it was worth. So why are you saying that he's claiming and he's pater and he's chayiv? What do you mean? If you tell me the case where he trusts him that he's not holding on to it, so why doesn't he trust him just how much it was worth? So that says the Gemara, no, because the borrower is going to say like kimle that the lender is not so proficient bigave in the mashkin. He didn't pay attention to know its value. I mean, I trust him if he's really holding on to it or not. I don't think he's a liar. But I don't trust him regarding what the value was, and that I'm saying, yeah, it was worth this amount. You owe me. So for that, he doesn't trust him. But says the Gemara, okay, but why doesn't the lender trust the borrower, the kimle b'gaveh, that he knows? They seem to be trusting friends. So why doesn't the lender trust the borrower? Why is he getting off the hook? Why trust him? Your bike was taka worth double the amount. Okay, I'll pay you. Why doesn't he trust him? Says the Gemara, no, lo mehemele. He doesn't, meaning he doesn't trust him. Says, wait, why is it any different than borrower than Mehamad? He trusts the lender. You tell me that really Rav Huna's halacha is true, he would have to swear that it's not B'shusi. And therefore, Al Gilgal Shvu, he would have to then swear Hakama Yishav. He just doesn't have to because he trusts him. And what's different? The lender doesn't trust the borrower, where you're telling me that that's why he's not going to pay that amount. Why would the Tana say it that it's implicit that the borrower is trusting the lender, but the lender is not trusting the borrower? Says the Gemara, because that's the reality. Loiva mekayim b'memalva, the loiva considers regarding the lender, the pasuk that says in Mishlei, tumas yisharim tamchim, tumas from the word of like tam, of shalim, that the upright, they rest in completeness. Meaning, if a person wasn't trustworthy and upright, then from heaven they wouldn't make him wealthy. The fact that he's wealthy must be that he's an upright type of a person. So if you trust him, he says, okay, fine, I trust you, and I'm not going to make you swear that it's not in your rishus. But Malvin the lender considers, however, by the borrower, the end of that pasuk. The selef boigdim yeshadim, and the twistedness of the treachery will plunder them, meaning the poor are because they're not honest, and they're not upright, and therefore that's why he doesn't trust the borrower. So very simple. It's based on the pasuk of Mishlei that the lender would not trust the borrower, but the borrower would trust the lender. But Al Kapam doesn't contradict Rav Huna's halacha. That concludes that part. Now the Gemara goes back and brings a story related to the halacha of the Mishnah. As we mentioned, the Mishnah says this halacha of shilim l'ratzli shava. The Shema voluntarily paid for the bekadin rather than to swear to be exempt. And then the Ganav was discovered. So the Shema gets back the Karen that he paid. He also gets additional kevon dal b'hei, as the Gemara explains, because the owner grants the kevon dal b'hei to the Shema for his generosity in paying for the bekad. That's the halacha of our Mishnah. Related to that, says the Gemara, Hu Gava, there was a certain person, the Afkid Kefe, he deposited earrings, Gabi Chavrei, by his friend to watch. Amalei, so he comes back to him later, says, Havli Kefe, give me my earrings. Amalei says, he says, I don't remember where I put them. So I was like, Rav Nachman. Amalei says, Kol lo yadano. Anyone who says, I don't know, shiusahi, it's a negligence. What do you mean you don't know where you put it? It's negligence. Zil shalom. So even if you're shemechinam, go ahead and pay back the guy for the earrings. So lo shalom. So he didn't want to pay. So I did the guy a favor. People say, why should I pay? Well, I don't know where it is. Well, you go find it. As Rav Nachman went, the dayan, and Agri Lapadimine, he took his home away, he took his mansion away, confiscated for payment for the guy's earrings. L'soy fishtakech keep at the end. Maybe that's how if suddenly the guy has to. They ended up finding the earrings. Now the thing was about a yaker. What happened is that it had gone up in price after he had paid back the owner the mansion for the earrings. So Rav Nachman says, no problem. Hadri keep the let the earrings go back to the guy who owns the earrings. Let the mansion go back to this guy who was the shomer. That's Rav Nachman that said. Now Amar Rabba says, I was sitting in front of Rav Nachman when he was litigating this case. And we were learning Parak HaMafkid. What we're learning right now, the Grace Rava was learning this Parak of HaMafkid, which they had the Mishnayos, they had that's what we read Nasi, and they were learning these texts. Now, Ba'amilei, and says Rabbi, I said to Rav Nachman that we learned in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, Shilam aleiratz lishaba. The guy pays, the Shema pays. He doesn't want to swear. What's the halacha? He acquires the kefil. Wait a second. This guy, he paid with his mansion for the earrings, so he acquires whatever the increase is, like by kefil. Here he requires the increase of the value, and so the halacha is, what's the halacha? That v'lo yahadili. No, so that's the halacha he was telling him that. What? No, he just said he says I don't know where it is, right? So he was. Yeah, our Mishnah. If a guy he doesn't want to swear just to get him, so he could say anything, and the oaths that doesn't make a difference. He could have sworn. Remember, he could have sworn that it was. He could have sworn. He could have whatever it is. We don't know. I mean, we don't know what happened. It's he, whatever his claim is. But we don't know. That's what I'm saying. But we don't know if he was Pesher. We don't know. We don't know. Right. He could have. Right, but he could have been not a Pesher. Right, but we don't know the reality. The reality is what he's doing. He's saying, I'm going to pay. I'm not going to swear. He could have sworn. And Rashi says explicitly, like even if it really was a negligent, but he could have said, and he could have gotten himself off the hook, and he doesn't want. He wants to pay and whatever. So I'm saying, look, you see that if a guy pays, halacha is that he acquires it, and therefore if it goes up, like the kefil goes to him, so the increase of value should also go to him. But says Rav Nachman didn't respond to me. Says Rav Shapa Avid Lahadali, you know what? He did very well that he didn't respond to me. My time, what's the reason? I'll tell you, there's a difference between the cases. Hasam, over there in the halach of our Mishnah, he didn't make the guy take him to court. He said, you know what, no problem, I'll pay for it. And therefore, okay, that's why he gets the kefil. Here he made him go to court. He refused to even pay. They collected his mansion, so then you don't get any greater things, from the fact that you paid. No, he's not going to get. He's not going to get. This is not kefil. This was regarding the increase of the value that the earrings had gone up in the meantime, which was saying that the guy acquired. No, it's so like Tyson the Matzah is Vinay Shilem. He's saying the Gemara is comparing the increase in the value of the earrings to like the Shevach, the Alma, like by kefil, where no, in not this case, another case, the similar concept. When the guy is a shomer and he pays for it instead of getting himself off the hook, it's not really the Gemara is comparing just the fact that he paid for it. So you get it now, whatever now value that comes accrued to it from external places like kefil or yaker of something, you should get it. So the question is, why is he saying just give it back? You can't just give it back. the discrepancy of the price of the earrings should go to the guy that was the shimer. So on that he says no. The difference is because you only get that if you're not matriach the guy. If you matriach the guy to bezin, you're not going to get the cable. No, you're not going to get the increase of the earring, and you just give back the earrings. We'll give you back your mansion. Says the Gemara. Remember, is that to say the suburb of Nachman? Nachman holds that the shuma, when the assets of the borrower are evaluated by the courts to the creditor, that hadar, that it goes back whenever the money is given back to the creditor, like over here, that the mansion is given back to the master. He just has to give back the item itself to the guy. That's what you tell me over here, that he has to give it back. Why does he have to give back the earrings? I mean, maybe he could, meaning he could be able to hold on to it and just pay the money. Well, you tell me that you have to give back whenever he wants to, and he's giving. So says Gemara Shani Hasan there. It's different because the shuma betois hava. Maybe shuma when you evaluate and the lender comes and collects, and then the borrower says, "Oh, I have money to pay up." No, you can't get back the item anymore. But here he thought the earrings were lost, but they really weren't lost. It was a mistake. The kahave keve meikacha, because in the beginning of the shuma, the earrings were by his possession. They just didn't know. How do you know that was the case? They obviously would not have evaluated his mansion for the earrings, but a shuma that a bezdin evaluates for someone that doesn't have money and he owes him money, that's like a full-fledged sale. And no, it would not go back when the guy says, "Oh, I have my money. I want my painting back." No, sorry, buddy. It's over. Too late. That's already by the lender gets to keep it. Now, Amin Ardai, the Nardais, they say, which are placed in bubble, referring to a certain Talmid Chacham from Nardai, Shuma Hadar Adresi Archashata. The evaluated asset, it must be returned within the year. If the borrower comes and he could pay, then you have to give it back. But Vama Meimer says, "Anom Narda, no, I'm from Narda," and there's really an I hold Shuma Hadar Lo'ilam. It's not true that the malva must return it forever. And says Allah says yes, Shuma Hadar Lo'ilam. That the value item, the guy could end up paying. You have to give him back whatever you had collected because he couldn't pay. And the reason why, because it's buzzing the bottom, you should do what's upright and what's good, and that's like Lufnim Mishra Sadin, that requires you to go ahead and give it back. Now the Gemara introduces this idea, once we talk about Shuma, a few different halachas related to this idea. So Pshita says the Gemara, what's obvious is like this. If let's say the Malva confiscated the loiva's item, he collected, it was assessed, the guy, the borrower is defaulted on the loan, they come and they make a collection, and now this creditor has his own creditor, his own debt to pay off. So he goes and he can't pay his creditor, because that's how oftentimes it is, as things collapse like this type of thing. So now his creditor says, "You don't have money. I'm collecting what you collected from that other guy." So we tell the second creditor, you're not better than the guy that you're coming from, meaning from the first creditor who is coming from the guy he collected from. In other words, just like he would have to return it and get back money, because you also get money from the original owners because and you can't say, "I want to hold on to this." In other words, the second one's not better than the first one. But what's different is, if let's say it wasn't given to a second person through also collections, through shuma, like we call it, through evaluation of what the value is for collecting of a debt, but rather zavna. Let's say this creditor who had evaluated the property for him, he sold it, or he bequeathed it to someone through inheritance, or he had given it as a gift. Oh, says the Gemara, Vadi Hanino, these cases of either buying or inheriting or receiving as a gift, Meikara, in the beginning, these recipients, Adaita the Aranachas, they were coming for the intention of the property, that it should be for theirs. They weren't coming for any money, meaning by a creditor, it makes sense that you have a Sisa Yashba Toiv, because we tell them, look, your rights to this creditor that you were collecting from, you were only owed money, and you're getting that money. But these recipients of a gift, or they weren't expecting money, they weren't coming for money, they were coming for a piece of property, that whatever it is that was being bequeathed to them. So therefore, they get to hold on to it, they don't have to return it. But by a creditor, you were only expecting money anyway, so then you would have to do the same thing as the first creditor and get back money. Which Taisa Div Maskal Zamna asks, he says, why by a sale don't we say that what the first guy sells to the second guy is whatever is by him? And just like the first guy would have to return the soul to the second guy? So he says, no, the first guy really doesn't have to return it because it really is, so to speak, sold to him. It's just because of a sisi or a toiv. So the second guy that it's sold to wouldn't have to return it. But by a creditor, then we're saying that yes, you would have to return it because you know better than the first creditor in the sense that you're really only coming from money. Now, other case, says the Gemara, is Shamula Li'isha. What happens if there's a woman that's collecting and her debtor doesn't have money, so they evaluate for her a property or whatever, an asset, and Vinsiva. And then she gets married. So, as Rashi explains, even if they didn't put that evaluation for her husband into the ksuba, that it should be like what's called nichsitzer and barzel, which is like acquired by the husband. She held on to this item that she had collected from her debtor for herself to be nichsi melug, which means that the principal is hers, and the husband gets to eat peiros. That's one case. Or the other way around. Shamumina the isha. The woman was a debtor. She owed money. She couldn't pay her collectors. So they said, we're going to possess some of your possessions. And then when she gets married. Umeisa, and now we're going to these two cases, whether she was collecting from others or others were collecting from her, and then she gets married. And then the Umeisa, then she dies. The Baal ben Nichse, the husband in the Nichse Melug of Ishta, of his wife, but we consider the husband, the Chacham gave the husband the halachic status of a lekeach, of a buyer. Oh, so that's very important. And if you're paying attention, that's mamish the difference we were just talking about regarding if there's a shuma and then there's a lekeach involved, as we said, of zavna. So then the halach is loy mahader. That if let's say they had evaluated for her a property that she was collecting from someone else that owed her money, and she got married and then she died, her husband inherits her. Like we said, zavna, if someone collects a shuma and then that person sells it to someone else, that recipient is coming for the purposes of the land. So the husband is loy mahader, he's not going to return it to the debtor because he's a lekeach. And we said by lekeach, you don't return it. So to the other way around is also true, but like Madrid and lay, we don't return it to him. Meaning, if let's say she owed money and they had assessed a property of hers, and she got married and she died and her husband inherited her, and now he wants to pay up the debt and to get back the shuma, take back the property, he can't say I'm a Yerush because Rabbanan consider him as lekeach, not like a Yerush. A Yerush could do that. A lekeach can't do that. So therefore, since the husband's like a lekeach, he doesn't have to give it back, and they don't have to give it back to him. Because the Amr B'Yisrael Chanina says, B'usha iskinu, and Usha. Yeah, that's regarding the halacha of them having to return it. So for that, he's like a lekeach, that he doesn't have to return it. But for them to return it to him, that's the opposite, that's the inverse. That's regarding the debtor. We were comparing Zavna and Yarta regarding if you got it from the collector. Here, the flip side is if, let's say, his wife was the debtor. Regarding he doesn't have to return it because he's a buyer, and that would be also if he was a Yerush too. But that's regarding just enough being a buyer. Now, the other way around, if she owed money, she's a debtor, that we never spoke about yet. So regarding that would only be applicable regarding a Yerush, as we're going to mention in a moment. But the Gemara says, "B'usha iskinu," when the Sanhedrin were in Usha, where they had gone in exile, and they were in 10 different places, and the Sanhedrin Gedolah, the Gemara says, on the 10 masais that they took. So one of the times it was in Usha, they instituted the Isha Shemacher b'nichsi melug b'chayabayl. If a woman sells from the nichsi melug, which again is property that she owns, but the husband gets utility in her husband's lifetime, meaning, as Rashi explains, that the husband should continue eating the produce in their lifetime, but the property itself is sold to a buyer for when she dies, and then the Mesa, then she dies, the halach is habal maitzi. The husband could extract the actual property itself, miyada lakuches, from the buyers, as the Gemara explains in Ksubas Avayin Chesem and Beis, the Takanas Usha was in the actual property itself for after death. So one thing we see is that the Rabbana consider him like a lekeach, and he says to the buyer, he says, yes, my wife sold you the property itself, but I'm the first buyer. Because if the Rabbana would consider him like a regular Yerush, by a Yerush, if his father sells his assets when he's alive, he doesn't get any Yerusha. So if he would just be a regular Yerush, then he wouldn't get if the wife sold it off. But he says, no, I'm not a Yerush, I'm a lekeach. And therefore, halacha is, like we said, these two cases where he's going to be able to, he doesn't have to return it, but they don't have to return to him either. As Taisa points out, your idea on the bottom Taisis, that Lekeach Hava says, even if it'd be a Yerush, Loy Mahad, he wouldn't return it. And Taisa makes the same point that you made. Keda Amar, like we said, Zav no Urta, it's the same thing. It's just like Taisa says, Mishum Loy Mahadrin Le Nakte. It's for the other case of that we don't return to him when his wife was a debtor, because if he's a Yerush, we would return it, because the son could redeem the property of his father. But regarding a Lekeach, we don't have such a halacha, and therefore that's what we're pointing out to say that he's a Lekeach. So now the Gemara continues on Amud Beis. So that was the halacha. Again, we were just saying a few halachas regarding Shuma, and we said that the husband regarding the wife is a Lekeach, which had relevancy regarding if she's a debtor or a creditor, and what's the husband's relationship, which we said that he wouldn't have to give back, but they wouldn't have to give back to him either. Now, in Amud Beis, the Gemara is going back to what we said regarding Shuma. In other words, that if, let's say, the courts don't forcibly evaluate for the lender the properties of the borrower. Yeah, that's usually how it is. I mean, the borrower says, Enli, so the courts come in, they get involved. Okay, no problem. We're going to repossess, what you got. But let's say no. The borrower on his own gets up. It doesn't make him take him to court. And that he tells him, look, take my property for what I owe you. So here we have Pligi Bar Rav Acha Rabbeinu Rav Machlekes Amayram. Chadam one says, Hadra, still the Malva would be obligated to return the item if the borrower could ultimately pay up. Chadam one says, no, in this case, Lo Hadra. Malva is not obligated to return the item when the borrower has money to pay up. What's the Machlekes? The Gemara explains. Mandam Lo Hadra, the one who says that he doesn't have to give it back, Saba he holds, Hi, Zvinim Al Yehi. This is a bona fide sale. The Medai did the Nafshag, he's letting him collect it willingly. So he's like, it's a transfer, it's a barter, so it's a sale. So you can't undo a sale anytime you have money back, say, what I sold you, I want back. But the Mahadra Sab, the one who says, no, he has to give it back, holds, it's not a regular sale. This said he gave it willingly. He didn't take him to court. It's only because of his embarrassment. He didn't want to, to go to court. But the truth is, he wasn't willing to just sell it, and he just had to pay up a debt. And therefore, ultimately, when he has the money, you have to return to him. So now the Gemara says that somebody that the court evaluated and repossessed his property for a debt. So the question is, emas. When is it acquired to the collector that that he could already eat the peiros from the property? So we have three different opinions. Rabbah says, once the adar chasa comes to the hand of the collector, meaning after 90 days when the court ruled that he owes him the money, the Gemara says in Baba Kamadav Kovid Beis and Beis that the courts write an adar chasa. Adar chasa is a shtar of a psak din on the properties of the borrower, that wherever they can find his properties, the lender is allowed to take it, and we give him over this document. When he gets this adar chasa, that's when he really can start eating the peiros. Abayami says, no, Edav bechasumav. The witnesses with their signatures, meaning from the day that the document was signed in court, even though it didn't come to the hand of the lender yet, Zachan like they already met him, so it's ready from that time that he gets the peiros. Rav Ami says, no, mechi shalimu yemei achrazasa. It's that even though he has the adar chasa in his hand already, and they didn't find, however, properties of the borrower until a later point in time, because adar chasa just lets him, but they have to actually find now. When he finds it, he has to come to court, and then the courts announce that this property to be sold, as the Gemara says, that if this guy comes along and he receives it for more than what others have evaluated, so then it goes with him the amount of the debt that's owed to him, so we give it to him after we finish the days of making the announcements of the sale. The Gemara in Erchin explains, how many days you make the announcement for, as the Gemara explains over there. But up until those days of the announcements haven't been finished, it still belongs the payers to the borrower. When the days of the announcements that we have property to sell, when that's over, then the payers belong to the lender. That's three different opinions in when does the collector get to really consume the payers. Now, the next Mishnah, continuing on this idea of hamafkid, of the shomer, what are the liabilities and the exemptions of the shomer, of the custodian? Says the Mishnah, haseicher par mechaber, interesting case. So if somebody rents a cow from his friend, now the renter goes v'shila la'achar, and he lends it to somebody else. We'll talk about later on, are you allowed to go and give to someone else? But he lends it to someone else during the days he rented. I rented it for I leased this car, I leased this cow for a year, and then he goes. He has someone who wants to borrow it for a few days. He says, no problem, I have this cow for a year. He lends it to someone else. Now, umeisa gedarka, when the shayl was using it, it died in a normal way. So, meaning not during when he was using it, it was just like the cow died. So Yishav HaSeicher, so the renter swears to the owner, Shemeisa gedarka, that it died in a normal way, and he's potter because the Seicher is not chayv anointin. Death is considered something beyond the control. V'hashayil, and the borrower who's chayv anointin, yisham l'seicher. He has to pay to the seicher. No, it wasn't during the work. It's just middle of the night. He comes back and Sally's dead, killed over on the side, and he just dropped dead. So that's what the Tanna Kama holds, that okay, the seicher walks out, he keeps the money, but Amr B'Yesi says, how could the renter be doing business with the cow of his friend? He's walking away with he rented it and he's going to now walk away with the value of the cow? No. The value of the cow goes back to the balapar, to the original owner. That's who the shoyel pays it up to. That's the machlekes in our Mishnah. So now the Gemara asks on the Rabbanan, on the Tanna Kama. Omalei Ravi de Baravan Labai says, Mechti, let's see. Right, that's something else. That's a different question. We're really going to come down to the fundamental principle, but in a simplistic way, saying. Yeah, we're going to talk about that on the next daf. That a guy might be able to. Shomer shemaslo shomer is a conversation. But let's say you are or not. Point is, now that it happened, so who is he paying to? So that's what the Tanna Kama is saying. Is I'm exempt. He's chayiv. He has to pay me. What does that have to do with you? And the Rabbi is saying, no, this is his cow, and he's owes money. How could the ownership of the money go to the seicher? It should be going to the owner. Now, so that's what the Gemara discusses now. I'm going to read the Bava Metzia Daf. Says, let's see. And this is where the lumdis comes in. Seicher, b'may kani lahai para. This is what the Gemara assumes. How does the seicher acquire this cow when it's in his possession? When when it dies, he acquires a b'shvua. He swears to the lender, that meaning to the owner, to the masker, that it died. So he's potter. So therefore he owns it. Now the lender, now the borrower owes it to him. But says the Gemara, why doesn't the owner tell to the renter, look, dal ant, v'dal shuvasech. Forget about you, forget about your oath. But I want to go and litigate with the borrower. Because the Gemara is assuming, as Taisa explains, that Seicher b'shvur dekani. It's only after the Seicher makes the shvur does he become pater. So therefore the owner can say to the Seicher, look, I released you from your shvur and your obligation to me. So if you're not swearing to me, you don't acquire it. Because you only acquire it when you get off the hook, up until you have to return the item that you had rented. You only get the ownership of it when you swear. No, I don't want your oath. And then obviously his cow is somewhere out there in the world, which is by the shayl. The shayl have to pay to him. That's the question on the Shitas Rabban. So Amalei Abaye says to me, Sabra, do you think Seicher b'shvu de kakanila? You really think that the seicher, the renter, acquires it with the oath? It's not with the oath that he acquires it. It's mashas misahu de kakani. It's only at the time of the death that he actually acquires it. Which, since it was in reality an oinus, he's already then pater. Ushvua, what's the point of the oath? It's just to calm down and appease the owner. He shouldn't say I was negligent. But that's not what acquires it for me. That's just an appeasement. I already acquired it at the time of the death, and therefore he can't say dal ant v'dal shvasech. That's not. I'm not getting it through the shvua. I already got it, and therefore the chum hold that it goes to the seicher and not to the original owner. Now, here's where we get a very interesting case that the Gemara introduces. Amr B'Zeira. Pamim, we try to do it in the most simplest way. Pamim shabaylim. Sometimes you could have that the owner, the original guy who had leased it out, mishalman, they have to pay kama paras l'seicher, many cows to the guy who rented it from him for this cow, according to the words of our Mishnah. Meaning, there are going to be from these cows that he's going to pay up that are going to be totally belonging to the seicher, that he gets to keep it. There are going to be those that are going to be there only for the time that he had rented it him, and then he has to give it back. But there are times that the owner is going to have to compensate the renter many cows. What's the case? Why is the owner owed to the renter many cows? So it says the Gemara like this. What's the case, Toma? So a little bit of halkab, not a crazy, but halkab a little bit. Agri minei mei yomi. Ruvain rented a cow from Shimon that he wants to work with it for a period of 100 days. Okay, so he rented it for 100 days. Now Shimon goes back and says, look, do me a favor. I know I rented it to you. I know you needed my cow. You wanted it for 100 days. Do me a favor. 90 out of the 100 days that you rented, could you lend it back to me? I realize that I need it. I know I rented it. I know you really paid for it. But if you could lend it back to me for 90 of those days, I realized I really need it. I could use it. I obviously can't afford it. I needed to lease out my cow. Do me a favor. Could you lend it to me? Fine. He lends it back to him for 90 out of the 100 days. Now, he says, look, after the 90 days, I'll give it back to you. You still have 10 days out of the 100. You probably don't even need it for 100. You just figured, hey, why not? You're a gevir. You just say, I'll take it for 100 days. I'll give it back to you. You'll have 10 days left. And that's what they did. You have the halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, Hasecha par mechaverei. Someone rents a cow from someone, v'shila la'acher, and he lends it to someone else. But during the days of the rental, so like Rashi explains, mali baila mali acher. Who cares if it's the original owner or if it's really a third person? If it dies by the shayel, which is the original owner, the seicher is pater because he takes an oath that it died, and the shayel has to compensate to the seicher. Now the original owner is the shayel, so he has to compensate to the seicher. But the case is not over yet. That's the first part. Then how the argument tamnin yomi. So remember, he had leased it for 100 days. He borrowed it back for 90 days. Then Reuben goes back and tells him, look, you know, for the 90 days that I lent it to you, can you go back and I'll pay for it again. I know you borrowed it from me and it's already a loan already. I already lent it to you. I'll pay for it again. Can you lease it to me for 80 days out of the 90 days that you borrowed it from me? And that's what he did. So now, this is based on the loan that he had made. It's as if that he rented it to someone else because he's taking wages for that right now, also on the 80 days, and all the profit is going to the shayel for this original owner, but he's like renting it to him again. So therefore, if it would die by Reuven, now we'll talk about that. That's going to be the same thing. It's It's going to be the same thing. A shayel. Why is it different? They're both shomrim. I'm borrowing or I'm paying. The guy's either doing me a favor or he's charging for it, but it's shomer. So now, but therefore, if it would die by Reuven now, Reuven would be pater. If it died by Reuven would be pater, the guy who rented, because of a shiur that it was oinus. So Shimon has to pay him one cow that he borrowed from him, which he's chayav v'nainsin, and also another cow, because he still has to do another 10 days to make up the 100 days. So on that says the Gemara that v'hader shay limine shivin yet. So we're not done yet. If it would be stopped right over here, that's what would happen. But not only did the guy rent it once and lend it back to him, and now rent it twice, v'hader shay limine shivin yomi. Shimon went back, the original owner went back and borrowed it from again 70 days from the 80 days that he had leased it to him, with the intention of giving it back to him and saying, look, there'll still be 10 days at the end of the 80 days for your second rental. That's the end of the case. So if it dies during the days of the 70 days of the loan, which the owner had borrowed it back 2 times, you have a second law, like the first law. That is, Reuven, the Seicher, will swear that it died in a normal way. He'll be patur to the original owner. Shimon, the so to speak Shayel, who's the real owner, who borrowed it twice back, will have to pay 4 cows to the Seicher. 4 cows. 2 of them will stay and belong to the Seicher. He gets to keep 2 cows. It's his, because the 2 cows that he lent to Reuven, and this time it's as if 2 cows died, because as Rashi explains, because the cow's not around that he had lent him the first time to say, oh, I returned to you the cow. This that he's paying him right now is like halach of tashlumin that he's paying him. And not to really give back the cow that died. So he has 2 claims on 2 loans, and he has 2 claims on 2 leases to do a remaining 20 days, which each one was 10 days. So therefore, as the Gemara explains, for every single loan, he owes him a cow, and for every lease, he owes him a cow. So therefore, there's 4 cows that he has to give back to the renter, as we explained. Not such a complicated case, it's just interesting the way it is. Again, he rented it for 100 days, he borrowed back for 90. He rented it for 80 days, he borrowed back for 70. And then during those 70 days, when it's by the original owner, which he had borrowed it back twice, and each time he left him 10 days from that lease that you'll still have time, each one, he owes him as a shayel to this seicher, because he's like, even though he's the owner, but he's like another guy because he's a shayel. He owes him for each one cow of where it's the actual cow that he owes him. And then he owes him just for temporary, for 10 days each, which are each 2 separate schiras. So each one he owes him a cow for 10 days. That's 4 cows, 2 that the seicher gets to keep, and 2 that he gets to use for a period of 10 days each that he still owes him on that schiras. Not such a complicated case, but it just feels like that a little bit. However, the Gemara asks a question on that, and not everyone agrees to this principle. Amalei Rav Achmed Diftil Ravina says, "Mechti, let's see. Come on. Chad Parahi. This was 1 cow. Aile va'afke. That brought it in, he took it out. Meaning, afke meschiras, it was removed from a rental, va'ile l'shila, and then it was entered into a loan. And then afke meshila, then it was taken away from a loan, va'ile schiras. It went back to being a schiras. Meaning that's actually what happened. Meaning you're theoretically creating these different cows, but it was the same cow that was leased, then loaned, then back to a lease, then back to a loan. So as Rashi explains, regarding payment also, he should only pay 1 cow, which will take the place of, in the first one, for the 2 loans that it gets to stay by the seicher, and then 1 he should give him to do for 20 days. What's this 4 cows that you're talking about? 1 cow that he gets to keep, and 1 cow that he gets to rent. That Amalei said to him, but what, you think that the cow is around? The name of the Hachi that he could say such a thing? In other words, if it would be around, you're right, it would be totally exempt. He would just give him back the cow. In other words, he would just be able to do the 20 remaining days. But now that it died and he wants to go ahead and have a payment of a lender, of a borrower to a seicher, that's for two different claims. And since it's two different claims, he owes him for two different cows, and he has to give him 2 cows for the rental. So Mabar Avashi Amar, which, as Rashi explains, he holds the way Rav Achim Difti had asked the question. He doesn't agree to the answer we just gave. He says, no, ein le alehen ela shtei paras, that the renter only has a claim to 2 cows, not 4. One was for the loan that he gave him, which he owes him. Now that it died, you owe the animal to the guy you rented it to because he's patur because it died and he's patur on death. But you, the owner, you were a borrower, you owe him. And one for the rental. Now forget about that; you have to pay him. You also owe him another 10 days, 20 days for the remaining time left on those rentals, because shum sheila achasino was one title of a loan. Shum schirus achasi was one title of a rental. Because what does that mean? There was 2 different times, but Rashi explained since it was 1 cow, it's just because the renter lent it out. He's coming in from 2 different loans, but it's 1 cow, so there it's only like 1 because the sheila kani legamri, because the loan totally acquires it, and the schirus of it, meaning the one that he's giving me is just explaining what do you do with it. The one that you're giving back is of the loan that he acquires totally, that he owes him. And this schirus of it, but the one from the rental, he'll just do it for those 20 days, and then he gives it back to the master. So we have this machlekes regarding if he's going to give him 4 or 2. But al kapanim, you do have this halacha based on the halacha of the Mishnah that you could have an owner paying the rental again because he had borrowed it back. The only shaila is it 4 cows or is it 2 cows? Does he get to keep 2 and 2 for the rental? Do you say no? He gets to keep 1 because the meiser was 1 cow, and that he has 1 cow to do for the remaining 20 days. Thank you. Anytime. Those things.